Hello and welcome, this is Synoptic, and we're going to be going through a 2v2 on Napoleon Total War, grassy flatlands, large cache, large unit size. This involves a clanmate of mine, Bushranger TLG, and he's actually playing with a random, whose name is Hippocras. And they're up against a clan called Fight. One is named Black Phoenix, the other Capcavern. Now let's go through the units. Bushranger in the bottom right corner. In the red, he's using 10 line infantry, 4 cazadors, 4 cavalry, 1 tirador, and 1 basic general. France, in the bottom left, red, is using 4 lances, 1 cuirassier, 2 chasseurs, 2 Voltiga, 3 old guard, 1 young guard, and 1 guard seaman. Now Austria, in the top left, is using 9 Uhlans, 8 Hungarian Fusiliers, 1 of those DLC line infantries, I think something Legion, and 1 Landwehr militia. And Prussia is using a more basic army, 4 Fusiliers, 6 musketeers, 3 foot guard, and 3 lancers. And by basic I mean builds that are normally found on grassy flatlands, which is basically very large amounts of line infantry. As we see there, I think 3 players are using 10 line, and the only one who's not is using France, where he has all of very high quality infantry. So right from the get-go, take note how Bushranger is taking the flank. He's pressuring the right side. Although we're seeing a pretty textbook error from France, he's got his light infantry far too forward. The Fight clan sees this immediately. They decide to mass cav him. And earlier on you see how Austria is already giving Prussia about 4 cavalry, so he's got a lot to spare, 9 Uhlans. That's enough for 2 armies easily. And you see mass cav here. Now that was a successful charge. Generally speaking, people will get excited, a bit too excited, and then carry on, keep going. They're probably thinking, 1 cavalry strike did good, let's just bring all of them in. So he starts off with a good hit from the side, and then decides to go mass cav from the front, which gets about 3 Uhlans killed instantly. You see 1 routing just now. So not only are they being shot at by light infantry, they're being shot at by the very high quality French infantry. And this leads to a full-on line push with lots and lots of inf. That's 9 inf from Austria. And it's pretty standard grassy flatlands, no terrain, just push the whole line, disrupt, and just kill everything in front of you. Now this is the end result of one of the sides, this is the middle. And it's just a question of where they decide to send their cavalry. You gotta be pretty quick, you can't just keep your cavalry in one spot. Now again, showing the top-down view. Bushranger's continuing to push that flank, he's gonna keep threatening them. If there's an error, he'll probably move right in. But through the mid, you see a lot of the cav just punch right through for further use. They probably stayed in there for too long. You saw a fair few squares, which are quite good at sniping cavalry. So once those guys go into square, you better get your cavalry out of there. And after wreaking some havoc, it's always good to follow it up with the next move, not good just to do one thing and sit back. So what Prussia's doing is now occupying that holy punch through. He's going to start flanking Bushranger and effectively splitting up France as well. And now returning to the right side, where Bushranger was harassing and pushing forward, stretching his opponent out and pushing him inward, just checking out that map there. Although he is fully supported by Austria's cavalry. That's 4 Uhlans, so in square form up now, countercharged by 2 Portuguese cav. A bit hard to say who'd come out on top in that battle. That's medium cav versus lancers. Lancers who were not charging, however. And also a square nearby, rapid fire. So I think this will be a small victory for Bushranger. As you see, some more cavalry just biting the dust just there. Austria is a bit too hasty in that attack there. What this allows Bushranger to do is a countercharge. And it's a big countercharge as well. You see 3 squares which are just throwing away all those Austrian Uhlans. You see 2 moving away there, so we lost 2 are depleted. This is Bushranger's countercharge with a depleted Portuguese inf, causing a square. He's going to push up his line infantry right now, seeing him in the background with the blue lines, and they will be able to get a full volley off, causing massive damage for these units. I think one of them is a foot guard, and you always want to deplete those units. Even down to maybe 70, they'll be more than a match for standard line infantry. Now what I won't be showing a lot of is the France versus Austria. As you're seeing, most of the cavalry has already been thrown away from Austria. And what happens over there is France just runs up from the front and just annihilates almost all of Austria's army. with his superior infantry. He goes into melee and shoots a few more, and melees again, We're seeing it over here. They're very hard to kill, these units. The 3 Old Guard inside Sophia, and I think that was the Austrian general that died, and there are no more inspiring units on the field for Austria, so routing units are big on Austria right there. Now remember those 2 Austrian Uhlans from before? Austria had swung them around the Bushranger's army and attacked the general's unit, which is huge on morale, takes them down almost instantly with their high charge. Plus 2 versus 1, not much of a chance to survive there. So good move by Austria, swinging behind the lines. It's always very hard to keep track of your units in such a widespread battle, with the units spread very thin. And we'll see a larger effect on morale later on when the units are much more depleted. So the same units again, wreaking further havoc. Although probably could have done a better job there. Not much point in to keep charging. Probably could have kept them out for a bit longer. And so the situation gets a bit more dangerous for Bushranger. His ally has been mostly depleted. There is still a fair few Austrian units left. And we did see that little Austrian Ulan sacrifice there that allowed a lot of foot guard action, and they just routed a Portuguese line instantly. Very dangerous close range. So that's the bottom end. We're going to move up here. I think Bushranger does have the light infantry superiority, or he will. He'll be very aggressive against the light infantry. If he can get access to the superiority here, he could be able to keep off a pretty strong line. At this point it becomes a typical line fight where both players' cavalry units have been depleted and there's not much units left on the field. So basically both teams will try and flank each other to death. So it becomes a matter of timings, time pushes, and basically speed. Also initiative. If you pull out of your opponent's attempted flank faster than you can flank them, then you will have definite advantage. In terms of raw firepower, I'd still have to give the advantage to Prussia, mostly because of 3 foot guards and no actual guard units for Portugal. Although light infantry advantage, of course, probably still Portuguese. And essentially this just breaks down to 2 main fights, almost identical. 2 contingents, light infantry and a combination of light infantry versus the other. You see Bushranger just winning the right side. That was mainly due to earlier actions with a very successful force square plus line push. Although he's splitting up, Prussia's splitting up his army and just pushing him to the other side. Bushranger attempted to melee a Prussian Fusilier, in which their reload speed was just too fast, and also coupling that with the dead general would make a pretty risky move, and they did end up routing. Although it's kind of weird, Bushranger will send up his Cazadors to do the same thing later, and you just have to assume they have much weaker melee stats and they'll end up beating this Fusilier unit. Although that is further on the game, and then the bar of power is further into Bushranger's favour. So essentially what decides the fate of this battle is aggression and initiative. Bushranger will consistently keep meleeing weaker units such as the Fusiliers, whilst maintaining his own light infantry superiority, giving that higher level of firepower at a longer range. And this is what I was talking about before. It was kind of weird how you had the light infantry tried the same thing and it lost, and then you tried the same thing with a much weaker unit and it wins. That's just kind of awkwardness that happens when your general dies. It's just that morale effect. You just don't know what's going to happen, mainly because if a couple of men die, the whole thing changes. They go from steady just to wavering instantly. So in terms of getting to the fight, Austria is closer than France, because I think France is just walking the whole way, I'm pretty sure, which is kind of weird. However, Bushranger is winning this fight slowly but surely, so it comes down to reinforcement from Austria to keep the battle in effect. And we're seeing more melee here, and this is what I said before: if men are getting shot while they enter melee, they're probably not going to be too successful. And at this point of the fight, a lot of units probably would be running out of ammo, in particular the foot guards. So in the bottom end, Prussia's coming out on top, and at the top end, I think Portugal has effectively won. You see with these initial pushes here, Portugal has to retreat up until the top end, whereas main army is winning. You're seeing these units just rout on the spot, again with the dead general effect, plus the high firepower of foot guards, and just even their standard musketeers high reload. So at this point I think Bushranger is going to be able to hold this off. He's got his main line, he's going to put it up into one strong front. He's got Austria coming on in 3 units, along with a walking France, as we said earlier. Just walking along, he don't care. He'll be there whenever he wants. But yeah, you see the line, it's very strong with Bushranger's army. And all that's left was the small victory that Prussia had. So he's trying to get onto the flanks, you see there now, at the very top. And I think in the last video I did, we discussed how impossible it is to keep your opponent in place. If you're just trying to walk around your guy, he's probably just going to end up turning. That's what Bushranger's doing now. It actually makes your army pretty vulnerable. They'll just wait until there's one unit caught out of place, and he's going to go straight at it. So he starts turning, and then he starts pushing forward. Because obviously the closest, or the shortest distance is always a straight line. So turn, 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 go forward and charge. And you'll see one Austrian unit's already in the red, it's just way too close. Now he does notice his infantry unit is caught out of place, and I think he's going to try and melee, but then he just routes, just like that, on the spot. And what's weird is the bar of power, it's still kind of even, considering what's left of France. All the France has of high quality infantry, and there's quite a large army of Portugal. That and whatever's left of Austria, they just ended up routing. But yeah, every single unit that was trying to flank is eventually caught out of place, just because of what I said just previously. They're trying to flank you, and you just all of a sudden charge them, and they're not ready for it. So what they have to do is commit, otherwise it's over. Although at this point I think they can accept defeat. There's not much else they can do. There's no real way they can fix Bushranger to a certain spot, and he also does have the long range advantage. So even when they do come into range, they're going to get a lot of bullets before they come in. I think a lot of this comes down to cavalry usage. If you're going to be really aggressive and really careless, I don't think it matters if you have lots and lots of cav. You clearly saw that the opposing side, the Fire Clan, were using lots and lots of cav. I think that just generates some mentality that you can waste them. I think if you play smarter with your cavalry, it doesn't even matter. Because we saw a whole bunch of Uhlans go directly into light infantry fire, and then a whole other bunch goes straight into squares, and eventually then that numerical advantage is just over. So if you bet at the cav, then you have more maneuverability. So that's about wraps it up. Good game to all the players, and thanks for watching.